We are live. We are live. This is the Sports Porch Philadelphia, all over the world on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on YouTube, on X, both with the Fantasy Alpha crowd and the Sports Porch crowd on X. Have you gotten used to calling it X?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. It seems a little weird, though.
I think it's weird that everybody has to say formally Twitter.
Yeah.
Can it just drop it already?
Is that a rule, or is it just something?
I don't know. But you know what? It is Paul George Day.
That's right.
Happy Paul George Day.
Absolutely.
The 76ers have landed a big fish.
Yes, and that's what we're going to do when we talk here today on the Sports Porch Philadelphia. Thanks for being here. If you're watching us live again on social media, and of course, if you're watching, you can see that you can also follow the Sports Porch Philadelphia, the podcast. We drop it right after the show on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere you get your
Frickin' podcasts.
Sooner or later, you'll get that down. It'll be like,
sure,
one person is saying, yeah, simpatico. So
I'm just caught up in the euphoria.
I know.
Paul George signing.
I know. And follow the Sports Porch on YouTube at Philadelphia Sports Porch. We drop everything there, and we're actually live on YouTube right now. So how do we do this? Well, we go in pages, notes, Mark hands me notes, page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, page whatever. And this week, of course, page 1, the 76ers, it's a free agent frenzy. Of course, they had the draft.
Yep, they had the draft right before.
And then they just started signing people like mad. So
that's right. Well,
the biggest one is Paul George.
Right. Well, Daryl Morey has had a plan. And that plan, goes way back to last year, where it was unload Harden and just let Tobias Harris go and have that max contract opening.
Right.
And a lot of things did have to fall the Sixers' way.
Yeah.
And fortunately, they did. Golden State tried to do a sign and trade with the Clippers for Paul George. The Clippers didn't like the players and the picks that the Golden State was offering, so that didn't happen. And also, too, just kind of a big, I guess you would call it a blunder on the part of the Clippers. I mean, I heard Stephen A. and Perkins and all those guys talking about it. They basically just let Paul George walk for nothing. And, here's the bottom line. Now, look, Paul George is 34. That's the only downside, is that he's an older player. But last year he still played 74 games and, was an all-star and averaged, in the 20s again, shot 41% from three. So,
which is pretty good.
Yeah. So there's really no signs of a slowdown as of yet. And really the Clippers didn't want to bring him back because of, they didn't want to give him a fourth year. Now, look, I mean, in sports these days, you're always giving players extra years that are probably not going to work for you.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So, I don't know. A lot of folks were saying today, like, what in the world do the Clippers do? And, of course, they re-upped Harden today. And isn't it kind of funny? Isn't it kind of karma that Harden actually turns out to be probably one of the biggest reasons why Paul George is coming to Philadelphia?
Yeah, well, I don't think anybody in Philadelphia is surprised when you talk about it that way.
Well, nobody likes Harden.
Right.
And Paul George didn't like playing with Harden.
Go figure.
Because Harden hogs the ball.
Yeah.
So, and there were a lot of things that went down to this happening. I mean, you had Joel Embiid, basically found out that Paul George was going to be on, the NBA countdown,
seen that clip. Yep.
And Embiid went out there and just said, "Hey, I want to go on. Can I sit next to Paul George?"
Right.
And he did the side eye.
Yeah. Maybe some signings. Yeah.
The Sixers contingent went down there. The owner Harris, who's also the owner of the Commanders.
Yep.
He actually went down, which kind of surprised me and pleasantly surprised me.
Right.
That he was involved. And you know who they brought, man, to seal the deal? Dr. J.
Yeah, I mean, how
you bring in Dr. J?
How do you say no to the doctor?
How do you say no to the doctor? But I'll tell you what. Apparently, he had already made up his mind because they took a picture of him meeting with the guys, and he was wearing an Allen Iverson answer T-shirt.
Yeah. So
So he's on board, which is great.
There he is, right there, right?
Yep, which
there
is great.
Is, Paul George.
That's the big three right there.
Embiid, George, and Maxey. If you're watching live, got a picture of that up.
So it's great to have Paul George in the fold, and I also really liked the other moves that they made.
Let's talk about them.
So you got Tyrese Maxey. He signed
Right.
his max extension.
Right.
So look, bottom line is you had to give Maxey a max deal.
Let me ask you this real quick.
Yeah.
And this is something that I do not know. Are the contracts in the NBA guaranteed like baseball?
Yes.
Oh man, that's a lot of money for that kid.
Yeah.
$204 million.
Yeah.
I'm really happy for him.
Well, he became a star this year.
Maybe we'll get a max contract someday.
No, I don't think so.
The power of positive thinking, Schwarber.
You're right.
Come on, let's go.
Right.
Let's
You're
go.
Right. Maybe we will.
Yes. ESPN, if you're listening.
Yes.
Not you.
Anyway. I'd like a max contract.
Yeah,
ESPN.
actually, I would.
So anyway, Maxey got the max.
Yeah.
And so, basically you have your 3 stars under max deals. And then I liked that they brought back Kelly Oubre.
Right.
And
that's Drummond. Yeah.
Yep. I liked that they brought back Kelly Oubre because, he gives you good defense. He gives you additional scoring. He can bring the ball to the hoop. He can shoot the 3.
Yeah. He
gives you a bit of everything. And they got him back on a pretty reasonable 2-year, $8 million a year deal. And in all honesty, I think he liked Philadelphia and wanted to stay here.
Yeah.
Because I think he could have easily made like $12 million out on the open market.
Well, and I think one of the most invaluable things he brings is that scowl in the picture right there. It just intimidates people.
Right. He's tough.
Yeah.
And let's bring back Andre Drummond. Now, Andre Drummond, to me, this is a great signing. I mean, now you never get too excited.
He was playing on Chicago, right?
Yeah. Now you never get too excited to say, okay, so we got a really good backup center.
Right.
But let me tell you, I mean, Andre Drummond is a former All-Star. Andre Drummond could probably start at center on 25 teams across the NBA.
Yeah. Better than the current backup center. No doubt.
Way better than the current backup center. And what's the issue with the Sixers when they get in the playoffs is when Embiid's on the floor, the Sixers are like plus 30, and when he's off the floor, they're like minus 30.
Right.
Right. So you got a guy who can play, and you can also play him with Embiid. He can rebound.
Right.
So you think about that Knicks series when they were getting outworked for all those rebounds. Now you have a guy who can go in there and do some dirty work. And then plus, when you have your games where Embiid doesn't play, you have a much better chance of winning with an adequate starting caliber NBA center in there.
Right.
And let's see, then we also added, I didn't put a picture up of him, but Eric Gordon, who is a veteran guard. They signed him for the minimum at $3.3 million a year. And he's just very, very good.
Yep.
He's just somebody. He comes in, he plays pesky defense. He can hit shots. Just a good bench player.
So before we move on to the draft,
yes,
let's review this from the standpoint of, did the Sixers upgrade? How would you rate it? Would you rate it on a scale of 1 to 10? I know you think they upgraded, and I do too.
Sure.
How would you rate the upgrade? Scale of 1 to 10. 1 being a not too great, 10 being like amazing.
I'd say a 9.5.
Really? That high?
Well, let me put it this way: the odds makers think it's that good.
Yeah.
Prior to free agency, the Sixers had the 8th highest odds to win the NBA championship.
Right, and now it's third. Yeah.
So, and you have Boston as number 1, who just won the championship.
Right.
Denver is number 2, won the championship 2 years ago.
Before, yeah.
And now they're putting the Sixers there, even in front of the Knicks, who made all those big moves.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, now look, a lot has to happen.
Yeah.
Everybody's got to be healthy for the playoffs. Everything's got to mesh well.
Yeah.
But I do think Paul George is the perfect fit for what they need, because he fits perfectly with Maxey and Embiid.
Yeah. And we talked about this at the end. Well, actually, we talked about this last year.
Mm-hmm.
You were talking about it. We talked about it at the end of the previous year. You said a guy like Paul George.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about it last year. We talked about it at the end of the season. And it seems like those stars were lining up. And the Sixers, look, the window is now.
Right.
You know, you've got your potential Hall of Famer. You've got your superstar in Embiid.
Mm-hmm.
You've got an up-and-coming superstar, just got a max contract in Maxey.
Mm-hmm.
You've got the coach that you wanted, Nick Nurse.
And then you got to surround him with good role players.
And you've got to surround him with great players.
Kind of started that process.
And Paul George, look, 34 in the NBA is not old.
No, because I mean, like LeBron's 40.
Right.
He's going to play like till he's 45.
Right. And LeBron, as far as I'm concerned, LeBron is a complete idiot. I just, I mean, look, all records aside and everything. I mean, we could talk for a long time, and it has been all over the media about the situation in Los Angeles and what he's done. And he's ruining that franchise now. He's setting them back so far, and
the whole Bronny James thing.
Yeah, absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, that was something that really kind of irritated me.
Yeah,
because here's apparently what was. Now look, there are some people out there that said Bronny James wasn't good enough to be drafted.
Right.
Okay. So some people said that.
A lot of people said
that. But also, a lot of people said he could be a second round pick. Okay. Now look, he went to the rookie camps, and he played very well at the rookie camps. Look, he was a guy who, he had that cardiac arrest.
Yeah.
And it was a miracle that he just came back to playing basketball.
Yeah, true.
I mean, but here's the thing. Apparently, what they were saying during the NBA draft, okay, maybe we ought to move on to that segment of the NBA draft.
That's where we're going to go next.
Is the Lakers and Bronny James and his agent, is also LeBron James' agent, were telling teams, don't even think about it.
Really? Don't
even think about drafting him.
Really?
He's not going to play for you.
Right.
And to me, it's kind of like, I sort of look at, Adam Silver, the commissioner of the league, and I'm like, get a hold of your sport, man.
Yeah.
This is ridiculous. You can't have agents be saying, don't draft this player who's a borderline second rounder.
Well, it's happened in every sport. Think about, when Eli Manning was drafted. Mm-hmm. He was drafted by the Chargers.
True.
Basically his dad stepped in and was like, yeah, you can draft him, but he's never going to play for you.
Yeah.
I mean, and John Elway basically said, if the Colts draft me, I'm going to play baseball. And he decided, and he signed, I think, with the Yankees.
Right. Well, look, I don't look.
It happens all the time.
Well, look, I don't like that either, but it's a little bit different when the guy's the number one pick in the draft.
Right.
You know what I mean?
True.
It's a little bit different.
Well, yeah, it is. You're right.
Yes. So, and that's the thing about the NBA that I just think is just so weak, is like the Sixers were fortunate that things actually worked to their advantage, because basically the Sixers don't end up with Paul George if the Clippers are a quality organization. I mean, the Clippers basically just did malpractice in this situation.
Yeah, right.
Because the way it's set up is the stars get to go where they want to go. And, Golden State is right down the street, I guess, from LA.
Right.
And, he could have stayed out in sunny California and gone to a team with a great player like Steph Curry. But the Clippers, spurned him and just said, no, we're not going to give you to a team that's in our conference. Right. So they said, forget it. And they got nothing in return. And the Sixers were the lucky benefactor of that.
Yeah.
But most of the time it works that the trade happens.
Right.
So for example, Klay Thompson is going to sign with the Mavericks, and it's a sign and trade.
Right.
Right. So it's, like, to me, it's like these sign and trades are just ridiculous.
Yeah, and you don't see that in other sports. You don't see that in the NFL.
No.
Yeah, I mean, if you do, it's rare, and you sure as hell
Right.
don't see it in Major League Baseball.
Right.
It's a totally different animal. Do you see it in the NHL? I think it does happen a little bit in the NHL.
I don't think
Not
so.
that often.
No,
If
not
it
too
does,
much.
not
Not
that
too
often.
much.
Yeah. So the Sixers drafted kid from Duke.
Yeah, kid from Duke,
Yep.
6'2" guard, Jared McClain.
Yeah.
He is a great shooter.
Number 16, right? Number 16 overall.
He shot over 40% from three. So he can shoot. To be honest, he looks a lot like Maxey, just kind of like a small, fast, tenacious guard.
Yeah.
So I guess it'll remain to be seen what happens. Now, let's say the Sixers team pretty much stays as is. I think, depending on injuries, he might play a lot. But if the team remains relatively healthy, he might not get a lot of minutes because he's a rookie.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right now, at the same time, part of what I'm thinking is he could be part of a trade package. So there's one other big name that is a sign and trade candidate,
right?
Which is Lauri Markkanen, who's an all-star player, who's very good. And there are some talks that the Sixers are in talks with Utah about him. There's another team or two in talks. And so if you go out and you get Lauri Markkanen, then you're basically going to give him like 3 first-round picks.
Yeah, and he'll be one.
And then maybe him and somebody in Paul Reed or something, because you don't need Paul Reed anymore. Right. So he could be used in a trade. We'll see. And then the 2nd round pick, which is like Adem Boma. And he's out of UCLA, and he's just like a tenacious defender. Power forward / center that really blocks shots and can rebound. Needs to work on his offensive game a little bit, but another kind of nice piece to sort of have deep on the bench.
Yeah.
But the team right now still really need to find their 5th starter. They did lose a couple guys today. They lost Nick Batum. Nick Batum went back to the Clippers, where he originally came from. And they said that he actually really liked the Sixers and enjoyed playing there, but it was a family decision. They want him home in LA.
You're right.
And they also lost DeAnthony Melton, went to the Golden State Warriors for $12.5 million. He was making $8 on the Sixers.
So he got a pay raise.
And to be honest, I kind of liked. Well, I guess I would say this. No, I didn't like DeAnthony Melton. I liked him until he was hurt all the time.
Right.
So it's kind of like, okay, I'll let you go if you're hurt all the time.
Yeah. Well, if you're rating all of these moves, their off season so far,
right,
a 9.5. I mean, it really, what it means is you don't really care about that.
No, I don't.
Those are non-events.
No, I don't care about that.
Yeah. They added, and that's all that matters. I'm really interested to see how George will hook up with Maxey and Embiid in this game. I think it adds a lot to what the Sixers did not have before. And the signing of the backup center from Chicago, that's a great move.
Yeah,
that's
for sure.
That's a great move.
Sure.
Because if you think about it, what happened last year? Last year, the Sixers looked really good to start the season. Really good. What happened? Exactly what we talked about. Embiid went down. We were hoping they would tread water. They did tread water, but barely. But in the process, they lost a lot of ground. They had to go to the play-in game, and then Embiid came back, and he was gassed.
Right.
He wasn't in game shape.
Right.
And then he had the migraines and the Bell's palsy. And it's kind of right. It's like, and I think that was from stress because a lot of times Bell's palsy will come on because of, I mean, I'm not a doctor, but it comes on, it's stress induced. And, we knew it wasn't going to be their year when he went down for almost half the year. So, coming into this year, I think you're preparing for and I think it's an inevitability that a player like Embiid is going to get injured. He's just big. His body is big. It's just the game he plays. He's going to get hurt. And now you've got a backup center who can come in and hold his own.
Right. Exactly.
And
exactly.
That's key.
And personally for me, I mean, I think you do it like the way we talked last year about when Toronto won with Kawhi,
right,
playing like 65 games.
Right.
I think you go into this season with that approach.
Yeah, it looks like that's what they're doing.
Just have him play like 65 games. It doesn't have to be like 75.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just let him sit out 15 games so he can be healthy for the playoff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, so far, I mean, more moves to come, maybe a potential trade here. Like it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, the Grand Schwabini has his finger on the Sixers pulse all the time.
Yep.
You're rarely wrong. I mean,
now,
you really are.
Yeah. Now I knew that this was going to happen once I found out that Paul George's wife had followed Joel Embiid's wife on Instagram.
Well, there you go.
That happened yesterday.
Uh-oh. Okay. So you're like, yeah, it's coming down.
It's happening.
Yeah.
It's happening.
Yeah. You are a creeper.
I'll
tell you that.
No, I'm getting the wives together. Some nice shopping to get done down at Neiman Marcus.
There you go. Neiman Marcus. And is Neiman Marcus, do they have a downtown Philly location now?
I don't know. I don't know. I would assume so.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. The Sports Porch Philadelphia, all over the world, live on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, and X. And of course, we drop the Sports Porch Philadelphia podcast right after this live show. If you're listening on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere you get your friggin' podcasts, please subscribe, leave us a review, and hop on over to YouTube when you get a chance. We're live there right now. You can follow us on YouTube at Philadelphia Sports Porch, page 2.
Shout out to the X crowd. We got a lot of people.
Seriously.
A lot of people on X tuning in.
Yeah, we actually have a lot of people on the Sports Porch X crowd. 15 of them watching. Mm-hmm. Thanks, guys. Drop a comment. We can't see your Twitter comments though, or your X comments. No,
okay.
That'll change when we switch programs here. But tweet us out. We'll try to hit you back. Page 2, the Phillies. Okay. We've been talking about this all year.
Yeah.
They get off to a hot start. They're looking great. They benefit from Atlanta having some key injuries.
Yep.
Best record in baseball for a while. Starting pitching.
Still best record in baseball.
Right. Off the charts. Yep. Bullpen not looking bad at all, even though they don't have a bona fide closer.
Right.
And what happens? Yes, we get injuries. Harper and Schwarber, they go down. Thankfully, it doesn't look like they're serious injuries. And first, I want to congratulate Sanchez on his first complete game shutout the other day.
Yep.
Continuing that string of great pitching.
Yep.
Will the loss of Harper? Now I know Castellanos has to pick it up. Trey Turner came back; he's got to pick it up.
Castellanos had a 4-hit game yesterday.
Right. Maybe this benefits him.
And Trey Turner. Got it was a comeback win yesterday. They were down 6-2 and they won, I believe, 7-6.
Yeah. So,
or 8-7, one of those two.
Couple things. Will the loss of Harper and Schwarber really hurt long term? Because when these guys go down, guys want to step up and they will. But do you think it'll really hurt them? They've got a nice big cushion.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to hurt them from, a standing standpoint. But I think what it'll mean is they'll probably play 500 while they're both out.
Yeah.
Now the good news is actually it was really good news on both of them because neither one is severe. They think both will be back before the All-Star game, and they're saying Schwarber should be back, at the end of the 10 games. For IL.
Look, the All-Star game's right around the corner.
Yeah, I say
rest him through it.
Yeah, I think they'll bring Schwarber back if he's fine, and they'll probably sit out Bryce Harper through the All-Star game. It's actually kind of funny. One of the things that, which is kind of an odd fear that I have, I was getting worried, like, I don't want the home run derby to screw up Bryce Harper's home run swing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's good. He's not going to be in it now.
Yeah. That can happen.
It can happen, you know?
Yeah. Well, hell, they can get hurt.
Right.
So I think what's a bigger loss, Harper or Schwarber?
A Harper.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, that was a softball question.
I mean, Harper, basically it's between him and Ohtani for MVP.
Right.
Now, being that he's going to miss 3 weeks, let's say, or 4 weeks, now you got to think Ohtani's going to have it, all to himself unless Ohtani gets hurt himself.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a bummer because, Bryce was just really locked in, and he was just crushing everything in sight. And also, I mean, Schwarber was too. I mean, Schwarber hitting 250. That's like him hitting like 350.
Yeah, that's like anybody else hitting 350.
Right,
I know. He is
right.
an enigma as a leadoff hitter.
Right.
And I would submit to you that he is, when Harper was not playing in the first part of the year,
mm-hmm.
and the Phillies were off to a really hot start,
mm-hmm.
he was in the lineup.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say, I mean, Harper is obviously the more talented baseball player.
Right.
Okay. And overall a better hitter.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say the loss of either Schwarber or Harper is almost even on this team.
Could be. You could consider it that.
Yeah. I mean, and that's why I posed the question: will the loss of Harper and Schwarber at the same time really hurt? And we talked about this. 500. That's what you hope. You hope for 500.
Well,
sounds just like our Sixers conversation.
Actually, though, also we're actually forgetting about somebody too. JT Realmuto is also out.
Right. But so, he's been out.
Yeah. And sometimes guys do step up. Like, the backup catcher is a guy, Garrett Stubbs. Right. And look, to be honest, he's a borderline Major League Baseball player.
Right.
He's the vibes guy. Yeah. He's the DJ.
Yeah.
In the clubhouse after the games.
Right.
Like, I don't think they want to lose him because he's the vibes guy.
Right. Well, they can't lose him now. They need him.
But anyway, I mean, he's still probably hitting like 210.
Right.
But since JT went down, he's hitting like 276.
Yeah.
And then, of course, they bring up this Marchand guy, who probably next year he'll be the backup catcher. He's got a gun for an arm. He's been throwing people out, and he's hit 2 home runs since he's been up.
How about that? How about that triple play they pulled off?
Yeah, and you know what? It was an odd triple play.
Yeah,
and they said that hadn't been done in 95 years.
Yeah, the rarest triple play in baseball.
Yeah. What was it again? What
I think it was it 135?
Yeah, I think of 135.
I could be wrong. So I don't have my second screen here.
It starts at the pitcher, right?
Yeah, one goes to the first baseman, then to the third baseman,
and then to the third baseman. Yeah. Right. So it was bizarre, but I guess every now and then the stars align and it happens, right?
Yeah. Well, who do they have coming up here?
Chicago Cubs are next.
Yeah.
No, that's
Cubs are not having a great year.
They're not, but this is the
pitching.
The one thing though is that the Phillies actually the July schedule is not easy.
Yeah.
So it's a tough schedule. So that's why I'm saying if they're able to kind of, hang in there at 500, they'll be all right.
Yeah.
And look, you still have, the 4 pitchers, right?
Yeah.
So
this is when they're going to have to lean on their pitching.
Right.
When you have a lineup that the Phillies have when it's healthy, and pitching a lineup that they have, you can have, if you have if Nola has a bad night, you might still score 7 runs. But
the problem was so for example, the Marlins are a bad team.
Yeah.
And they split with the Marlins 2-2.
Yeah.
And they lost the Nola start, which was a shame because Nola, I think, went 7 innings and gave up 3 runs and then lost 3-2.
Right. So you had a quality start.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's like a game where you lose a Nola start because you don't have your bats in there.
Yeah.
Probably anyway.
Yeah. So we'll have to keep an eye on that, and hopefully they'll do a little better than treading water. But we've talked about this, and Steve brings up they play the Buccos in July. We may be at one of those games.
Hey, the Buccos are. I mean, look, the Buccos are not a good team, but they've got sneaky good pitching. Yeah. So it happens all the time.
They just took 2 or 3 from Atlanta.
Yeah, it happens all the time. I think the Phillies usually come in, they play 4. It wouldn't shock me at all if they split 2-2.
Yeah.
It won't. It'll be frustrating.
Yeah.
Well,
when you look at the Pirates lineup, that's a very frustrating thing for anybody who is a baseball fan, not just a Pirates fan.
Right.
You look at that lineup, and it's like one guy batting 270, and everybody else doesn't belong on a major league roster. My apologies to Andrew McCutcheon, but
I'll tell you, the Paul Skeens is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Although it's funny, he's got a habit of giving up like first batter home runs.
Yep. Then he settles down.
Right.
I think it's because this is one of the things that they teach you when you're really young in baseball. And you're trying to be a pitcher, is that first pitch, always throw first pitch for a strike.
Right.
And so these guys are like, well, this is going to be my only chance to hit him. So they swing at it, but yeah, that'll be an interesting series because the Pirates are sneaky from the standpoint of as horrible. They have the second worst lineup in baseball.
I can't imagine who's worse.
Yeah. The Marlins.
Are they?
Yeah. And then the Phillies just split 2 on them.
Right.
But their pitching is so good that even when you have the basically the worst lineup in baseball, there's going to be a night where you score 5 runs.
Right.
And if it just happens to be Skeens or Jones or Keller on the mound for the Pirates, that's probably the night the other team's only going to score 3.
Right.
So we'll see there. But I think it's important that they definitely tread water. But this cushion that we talked about for the last couple weeks that they built up over the Braves is exactly they couldn't be in a better position as far as the inevitable injury to a star player or two for right now. So they should not panic.
And I have to tell you too, I mean, I actually watched the Braves play the Pirates this weekend.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, they really are severely lacking without Strider and Acuna. I mean, if you think about it, like, there's times like I was watching one of the games. I think the Pirates it might have been like 1-1 and the Braves had bases loaded. And instead of Acuna coming up, it's like one of these dudes, like, I can't even remember his name. It's like some dude who he hits 20 home runs in the 7th spot and hits like 270, but he's not special.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's the thing about the Braves, though. The reason that they're still 10 games over 500 is, or 9 or whatever it is now, is that, last year they set the all-time major league record for home runs. Their entire lineup, like 1 through 9, they all hit over 20 home runs.
Right. Well,
so they've done a great job at putting that team together.
But there's also other things too. Like, Matt Olson is a really good player.
Right.
And like when he's playing well, he's hitting like 300 and hitting 40 home runs.
Right.
And I think because he usually bats, I believe, in front of Acuna.
Right.
And so they got to pitch to him.
Yep.
Now all of a sudden Acuna's gone. They don't have to pitch to him. He's hitting like 240 with 12 home runs.
Well, and that just it shows you that analytics are not really the way you should manage a baseball lineup.
That's right.
Okay. It's old school will always trump analytics. That's an opinion that I have. It will never change.
Yeah. I agree with you because there's no analytics that say, well, what are his stats when Acuna's out of the lineup?
Well, there are analytics. There's stats.
Yeah, but nobody looks at that.
Well, and it's all it's based on past history,
right?
But it's based on time-tested strategy in baseball. When you set a lineup a certain way, there's certain spots in that lineup that are going to be pitched to.
Right.
You can't let this guy get on because the next guy could knock him in, could hit the ball over. He's going to hit a double. He's going to score, so it's still
so
that
now
way.
They don't have to pitch to him because the next guy's not that good.
Yeah. They can throw him a bunch of junk and he can swing at shit. And then he strikes out and he's swinging at bad pitches. That's exactly right. So
correct.
Well, all right. So the Phillies right now, they got a little bit of a cushion, as we said. God willing, they'll tread water for the next 3-4 weeks. All-Star break coming up. Harper's not going to be in that. That's good. And we'll see. But
look, Steve says here, hopefully the Phillies get Falter and not Skeens. Actually, I want to play Skeens.
Yeah.
I'm actually curious to see who's the first team that's going to rough up Skeens.
Yeah, because he's had he really hasn't had a rough time.
Well, the thing that's been interesting is the last couple starts, like he's been hit hard, but he's gotten out of multiple bases loaded jams.
Yes, he has.
But like it's like, like he'll be dealing like he's given up like 1 run in the first 3 innings, but given up 7 hits. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm interested to see who's going to eventually crack him for a few home runs.
Yeah.
But it's probably not going to be the Phillies though, because if there's no Schwarber and Harper,
well, you don't know. You
don't know.
You really don't know though.
Right,
I mean, there is no way that a guy. And Steve chimes in again. He's watching on YouTube. Skeens versus Nola would be boring as hell. Maybe not.
Why? Why would that be boring? Actually, I find watching Paul Skeens the only games worth watching of the Pirates.
Well, I mean, I think Steve likes to see sport.
Offense, right?
Yeah, he likes the offense.
Yeah.
But that's the thing about going to the games. When you go, people talk a lot about it in Pittsburgh, and I'm sure in Philly, going to see Nola pitch or Wheeler. It's like you go to see them pitch, but you really can't see what you see behind the camera.
Mm-hmm.
The movement on the fastball, Skeens' splinker, whatever the hell that is.
Mm-hmm.
But then the game does get boring. I was talking to a friend at work about this. It's like, yeah, he went to see Skeens pitch, and it was great to kind of see and the excitement there. But other than that, it was kind of a boring game. And it's like, yeah, because what you're hoping for is that like all of a sudden you look up and it's 6 innings and the other team has no hits. Right. And then you're like, okay, now I'm excited.
Right. Or you're hoping to see 10 plus strikeouts.
Right. Yeah.
Like
strikeout
that.
number 10. Right. And now you get excited, but it takes like 5 innings to get there.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah. But it'll be Steve says home runs more fun than strikeouts for me. I agree.
You might be wanting to commit suicide watching the Pirates.
Seriously.
I saw something on the Pirates. I know I shouldn't be talking about it on the Philly show, but it was just so sad. It was something like in the entire month of June, the Pirates 4, 5, and 6 hitters hit 1 home run.
Yeah, that's cool. I like that. That's a great
insanity.
Stat. It just further solidifies the fact that
it's insanity
that their record is better than their team. I mean, to be where they are at 3-4 games under 500 and not have. I mean, I'm telling you, at 53 years old, I promise you, my batting average would be higher than a couple of those guys.
I don't think so.
Yeah, no, I can't hit it as far.
I don't think,
but I would leg those out.
I don't think you could hit major league pitching.
I would leg those out. I'm telling you right now, I would do it. Okay, Sports Porch Philadelphia. We drop the podcast right after the show. Anywhere you get your podcasts, you can also follow us on YouTube at Philadelphia Sports Porch. Page 3 now, we're going to go to, wow. I mean, it's crazy. The NHL draft, the NHL free agency frenzy, the NBA free agency frenzy. It's all happening at the same time.
The big news is Matvei Michkov has signed his entry-level contract. He is coming.
Yeah. So
he's coming.
We knew that last week.
Exciting. Yeah. Exciting.
But that's like old news. What we want to see him play.
Right. We do. Now, keep in mind, there's kind of like 2 ways you go in hockey during the free agent frenzy. You're either a team that decides that you want to build from the draft and build from within,
right?
Or you're a team, or sometimes you do nothing because your cap is in a bad situation,
right?
Or you're a team that needs, those 1 or 2 moves that put you over the edge. And so you sign somebody so for example, the Nashville Predators signed Stamkos. Right. So he ended his run as a Tampa Bay Lightning player.
Right.
But in all reality, there's not a lot of huge names out there. Patrick Kane re-upped with the Red Wings, and really there's not a lot going on. I was actually disappointed. I was hoping that the Flyers were going to maybe sign Sean Walker back, their defenseman that they gave away to the Avs, but he signed a 5-year deal with Carolina. They did bring back Garnett Hathaway, who is a good kind of role player, kind of like a pesky kind of guy.
Right.
Plays with heart.
Right.
Look, a guy for a 3rd or 4th line, So, essentially, I don't really think the Flyers are going to do much of anything in free agency. I'll do one last check here. Oh, yeah. Eric Johnson, who's a defenseman, He's like a 15-year player. At one point, he was a first-round draft pick. They got him at the deadline. He resigned. But we're not really looking at much. It's mainly going to be, the Mitchkoff and, some of the younger guys continuing to grow together.
Steve says he can't wait to see Mitchkoff's reaction to a Torch practice. And also, I mean, he's Russian. Okay. Those Russians, they can handle anything. And he loves the Hathaway extension. How do you feel about that?
Well, he probably says he loves the Hathaway extension because he thinks Hathaway's probably got no skill.
Right.
But, he's actually, he's a decent fourth liner. Right. I mean, he actually does have a little bit of skill. Like he'll give you he might give you 4 or 5 goals from the fourth line, right. Something like that. Right. And, and he sets the tone.
Yeah.
He's a tone setter.
Yeah. All right.
But, so with the Flyers, just kind of wait and see. Now, as far as the Flyers draft went, look, the hockey draft is a total crapshoot.
Yeah, it is.
Unless
you're getting the number one guy who's a phenom that year.
Yeah, unless they're in the top.
Like Connor Bedard got Rookie of the Year.
Right.
Surprise, surprise.
Right.
Yeah. So
when you're drafting at 13, they were actually drafting at 12 and they traded back to 13 to get an extra third round pick.
Right.
And they draft a guy. He does have a cool name, Jet Lachenko.
There you go. All right. The next Wayne Gretzky.
And hey, if your name is Jet, it's good to be fast. And
is he fast?
He's very fast.
Yeah.
That's
is that his real name or
J-E-T-T?
Oh my God. J-E-T-S. Okay.
So he was their first round pick. We'll see. I mean, I don't know. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because the pick was scrutinized somewhat simply because there were a few guys who had fell that were, supposedly, top 10 picks. There was a defenseman that fell that was considered to be one of the top 3 or 4 defensemen in the draft, and they didn't pick him, and they picked this kid. Now he's also young. He's 17.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's young, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I'll tell you what, I whether it works or not, I like the approach because I think it's a gutsy, stick to your guns, believe in your evaluation pick.
Right.
Instead of just saying well, every magazine says that this guy should be the next guy taken and let's take him. Right. They've obviously watched hours and hours of tape on people and they felt like, hey, this kid could be something special. And the reason why he's hanging around at 13 is because he's 17 years old.
Right.
And so let's see what happens. Right. So I applaud Danny Briere for taking that kind of approach because, you don't want a GM who's sitting there trying to say, all right, well, I got to make a pick to make everybody happy.
Right.
Yeah.
And,
they drafted a bunch of they drafted a couple centers because they're kind of weak at that position. They drafted a pretty big D-man, early in the either late second round. I think they traded up to get back in the second round to get a big D-man. So, all these prospects are a couple years out. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Well,
yep.
Listen, it is the dead zone now. And, there are some teams in the NHL making a lot of moves. I think the cross-state rival, the Penguins, made 5 moves today.
Yeah, but they were all kind of minimal.
Yeah, they were. But there's a lot of teams making a lot of moves. And before you know it, it's going to be preseason hockey, too. I mean, just the fact that the Stanley Cup Finals ended in late June.
Mm-hmm. I
mean, when do we start up again? 2 months?
Mm-hmm.
Where are we? July now? So August, September. Yeah. I mean, it's crazy.
Well, hockey doesn't get going until October.
Yeah. But still, I mean, you're talking 12 weeks away.
Yeah. Yeah. But, the sports teams in Philly have done good by us. We got a exciting Philly season ahead. Should be a playoff team, barring some kind of disaster. You got the Eagles are coming in next year with at least a top 10 team rated. If not higher.
Yeah. Well, this is the year for the Eagles. I mean, if you think about it, a couple years back when they went to the Super Bowl, they just, I mean, they went up against a juggernaut, and then last year they took a little step back, which I considered a Super Bowl hangover. It was just like, oh my God, we made it to the Super Bowl. And then it was like, oh my God, what are we going to do? And the coordinator fiascos. But the additions they made this year, I mean, they should win the NFC East at the very least, because
you would hope so. You would think so.
Nobody else in that division is really, I mean, the Cowboys are crushed by Prescott's, salary cap.
Right.
The Commanders are in a complete rebuild, 100% new owner, rookie quarterback. Who knows? And the Giants are an unmitigated mess.
Right.
So, and the Eagles, it's not a default thing. They actually have the complete team, so if there's anything lacking, it's kind of the question marks are on defense.
Right.
But not on offense. So, but we'll get to that when camp starts, which is just right around the corner, believe it or not.
Yeah, not too far. I think it's like mid-July, isn't it?
I mean, that's
mid-July,
crazy.
So that's exciting.
Yeah, here we go again. So last thing we're going to talk about is something we've been harping on for the last couple of weeks, and it's the 2024 Cheesesteak Challenge on Philadelphia Beautiful, which is starting next week.
Yeah, that's right. Next weekend. Next weekend.
Oh my God.
I got to start mapping it all out.
Oh my God.
Got to start mapping it all out.
Does it take out? You do it by hand, don't you? You don't have an Excel spreadsheet?
No, I do. I do an Excel spreadsheet. Yeah, well,
listen, guys, this is some serious shit we're talking here. He's got an Excel spreadsheet for the best cheesesteak in Philadelphia.
I did it by hand for years.
I know you did.
Until it got to the point where I had to go Excel spreadsheet.
That's great. That is
fantastic. So it's just too much to manage at this point.
I need a computer program. There is something called AI out there. Maybe we just have AI decide.
I don't like this whole AI business.
I don't either. I think it's ridiculous.
Here's a funny thing. So my dad says to me the other day, my dad goes on vacation to Naples. My dad goes on vacation to Naples. Okay.
Yeah.
And
doesn't he live in Boca Raton or something?
Yeah, right outside of Boca Raton.
Yeah, and so he goes on vacation to Naples, Florida?
Apparently it's a thing. It's like a weekend getaway.
Really?
Yeah.
So when you live in Florida, you take a weekend getaway to Florida.
Yeah, well, think about it. If you lived in Philadelphia, you'd take a weekend getaway to the shore. It's like an hour and a half away.
But okay, well, go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So anyway,
his name is Neil.
So anyway, he was telling me, he's like this chat. What is it? Chat GPT.
Chat GPT. Yeah.
Right. He's like, these AI apps are amazing.
Oh no.
He's like, I put in that I want to go to a restaurant that's moderate pricing, that's casual dining, that's not touristy, and it shoots out 5 different choices. And I'm sitting to myself thinking isn't that a Google search?
Isn't that open table?
Isn't that right?
That's not AI.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's
I'm like that. That doesn't seem like anything special.
Yeah, no. But trying to explain that to him, not going to work.
No.
Not going to work. So the Cheesesteak Challenge officially starts July 5th or July 6th.
Well, you know what? I will let you know when I know.
Okay.
I have to talk to some of the guys down at the Cheesesteak Factory.
All right. Yeah, right. Yeah. All right. So look for that on Philadelphia Beautiful. And of course, we'll give you updates on the Sports Porch Philadelphia podcast. And with that, Schwarber, I think, yes, it is time
to say goodbye.
To wrap it up. So you have been
the Sports Porch Philadelphia,
all over the world, live on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and X.
Happy Paul George Day.
We are going to drop the podcast right after the show. So please, on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcast, Spotify, or anywhere you get your freaking podcast, subscribe, leave us a review, follow the Sports Porch YouTube at Philadelphia Sports Porch, and we will see you next week. I am your technical director, and I am out.
Clap your hands.
Yablonsk.